think we're
So
broadcasting it.
we are
There's always that nervous feeling when you hit live, go live and start, and you're like, is it doing it? Is it going to work?
It's doing it, and I hope we are doing it. Hello out there in Eventbrite land and Zoom land. We're going to get started and get online, so we'll be with you in just a minute.
Makes me realize I really should have worn pants. It's a high wire act.
If you guys are ready to go, I say let's get going.
Quite the echo.
Sorry. Hey, folks, let's get started. Mark, pull my door. Thank you.
I'm seeing messages pop up.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got a lot of people here. I'm very excited. I'm very pleased. I want to welcome everyone to our very first virtual Who Knew. For fans of Who Knew who've been attending our events for the last 5 years, this obviously is a new medium for us. Customarily, we have our events at City Winery. I want to give a shout out to all my friends at City Winery, and frankly, all my friends that work in live music and venues across the world. We're here for you and praying for you, and we hope to get back to business as usual sometime soon. I know you share that sentiment. Today, I want to, I guess, just tell you how pleased I am to have this opportunity to present two of my friends to you in this new medium. Jim Griffin, as you all well know, has been a constant collaborator of mine since the inception of Who Knew. In fact, the original Who Knew idea came from Jim himself. It was almost a dare that he gave me back in 2014. So I couldn't do a virtual Who Knew, a first virtual Who Knew without Jim being involved. So let me tell you a little bit about Jim. And I have to read this because it's special. Jim Griffin is very well known and widely respected in digital music and content as a pioneer. He was Geffen Records' very first CTO, and in this role, Jim devised and executed the very first digital download of a music track. So yes, we have him to thank for that. He was also Warner's first head of network licensing back in 2008. To demonstrate his bona fides as a subject matter expert, Jim has testified before Senate and House Judiciary Committees related to copyright and digital content issues. Jim is also the founder and moderator of the music industry's most famous list, the FA List, which if you want more info about that, please email him or me directly, and I'll be happy to connect you. That's Jim Griffin. The main event today is Karen Allen, and Karen has created Twitch for Musicians, and the URL for that is twitchformusicians.com. It's a book and an outline course now in its second edition that demystifies the process of producing and growing a channel on Twitch. She has produced live streams for Loma Vista Recordings, Road Nation, and rap artist K-Camp. Features artists on In Rotation channel on Twitch, produces the Marina V Music channel, and manages Megan Linnaeus, a top music streamer. She's also a strategy and business development consultant to tech startups in music and entertainment, and has held executive positions at RIAA, Mobile Ecosystem Forum, and TAG Strategic. Ladies and gentlemen around the world, I am pleased to present to you Jim Griffin and Karen Allen. Take it away, guys.
Hey, Tom Troy, you don't get off so quick. Look at all those posters behind you, buddy. You practice what you preach, from what I can tell.
Yeah.
Are those all Who Knew posters?
They sure are. We've done 38 total Who Knew events.
Wow.
So
You are wearing Women Who Rock like a halo over your head.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make you an angel?
I hope so.
Did we get a poster for this one?
I will do a poster
It's
for
a
this one.
virtual
and get it out.
poster
Yes.
After the
or
fact.
virtual who knew?
Well, I just want to observe you're a man who practices what he preaches and puts together events and so forth. And so it's exciting to be a part of your first virtual event. And especially so with Karen Allen, a good friend of mine for such a long period of time. You know, you mentioned that first download that we did at Griffin. That was in June of 1994, which is quite a time period ago. I mean, that was 26 years ago almost. And I knew Karen Allen back then. So I would say we're survivors, the three
I'm
of
OG Fall List.
Yes. And it's
At the OG Fall location.
Yes, that's true. 587 in LA's Chinatown.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That was a great joy. But, you know, let's get right to it. And I think people want to know what is live streaming and what it is not. And so I'm going to ask you to define live streaming as it is for you. I mean, as a technologist, I would say streaming is the just-in-time arrival of customized digits instead of their download or their caching, you know, the immediacy of the thing. But I suppose for you, it may have a particular meaning. So what is it to you?
Yeah, I'm really glad that the two of you were game to have this conversation, because I've done so many webinars and podcasts and blogs and so forth talking about the topic of live streaming, and super happy to do all of it. But because of the need for everybody to learn so quickly, the focus so far has really been on what are the services and what do they do and how do I make money and which one should I use? And I feel like we're sort of out of the immediate need for that information, and we can kind of relax into the medium of live streaming and really talk about what this is that we're doing. Every time we have a new medium, like I would say social media was a new medium. I would say MySpace even, and those sorts of, early social media companies with content attached were new mediums. Every time we have one, we do what's most natural to us, which is to take what we know and to map it on it. And there's a lot lost when you do that. And I think when we have an entirely new medium, like community live streaming, which I'll explain that term in a minute, but when we have a new medium, we have to give it its own room to breathe. We have to give it its own room to use its features and figure out what works and do a lot of A/B testing and not have the same expectations for it that we have for everything else that we've done. And I see a lot of major social networks doing this exact thing with their live streaming. So their live streaming is a feature that's nested within their social network. Facebook Live is nested within overall Facebook, and they look at live streaming through the lens of a social network like Facebook. But true live streaming, not so much live broadcasting. I think of live broadcasting as, the Coachella broadcasts and Lollapalooza broadcasts and those things that are certainly a live stream, but they're more of a broadcast than anything. Community live streaming to me is a community of live streamers and a community of live stream viewers coming together around the creation of these live streams and growing a real community back and forth between them, between the creator and the viewer, between the viewers and the viewers, and between the creators and the creators. And you sort of have this triangle of community that happens around this new medium. And you really have to sort of just forget all your expectations of everything else you've seen in the internet and go spend a good 5 hours on Twitch. Go spend a good 5 hours on Go spend a good long time really watching and paying attention, and you'll see exactly what I mean by this is not just a new form of content distribution. This is a new form of communicating with your audience. This is a new way to create content. The way you create content for this is diametrically opposed to how you create content for social media. You're on for 3 hours playing music and talking to fans. Social media is all about 3 to 5 minutes and get in and get out, because they're moving on to the next thing in the newsfeed. There is no next thing in the newsfeed in live streaming. You settle in with someone for a few hours. So I'm really glad we're taking a moment to have this conversation and really talk about, what is this thing, community live streaming. What does it mean to be on a platform that is dedicated to live stream, being just nested within YouTube and Facebook, and to some extent Instagram as well? Because I think once you're on a platform that is dedicated to live streaming, the way Twitch is, the way YouNow is, there's, Caffeine and Mixer, also very gamer heavy ones. Once you're on that, it's a whole different world. In the same way you can think of, playing a game is a whole different world, a whole different kind of content than any other kind of content exists out there. This idea that there is a community coming together around content, and then there are these creators sort of being the leaders of these little mini communities, macro and micro communities that are all kind of like working together. And it sort of becomes larger than itself in a way. I go to TwitchCon. Twitch has a conference, if you didn't know. It's called TwitchCon. They do it every year. They do it in Europe now, and they do it here. They do it in America. They've been doing it in San Diego, where they hold Comic-Con. So I went in 2016 and I went last year. And you'll notice when you go to TwitchCon, all of the messaging all over the conference is, you're among friends, welcome home, no one's a stranger here. It's this constant acknowledgement that they are running a community and that people are there to be a part of this community, and everybody finds their place within that. And they do that through the medium of live streaming in a way that they can actually express themselves and create what they want and have a relationship with an audience and grow the audience. And it's just really convenient that Twitch has found a way to gamify and even monetize that audience. So it's like the first thing I really like to tell my clients is, you have to really understand what's happening. Otherwise you won't know how to create for it. And you will seem very awkward and misguided, and the nerd in the room, amongst the room of nerds, so to speak, if you kind of make these misfires. So understanding what's going on is super, super, super important.
It's a funny world. I say this because when I went to college in the 1970s, you had to know that Marshall McLuhan said that the medium is the message. Now, I had no idea what he meant by that at the time, and yet I've lived to see it come to pass. This new medium really is the message for many people, much as it was true for a time period that if your music was not an MP3 format, it just didn't matter because that's the kind of player people were carrying around. You had to get your music into that medium in order for it to be a message for other people. And now I see what I call Tarzan economics happening, people letting go of this vine that holds them off the jungle floor, swinging to this next vine. And it feels like Channel We, which was 3 channels, ABC, NBC, CBS, and of course PBS, now becoming Channel Me, just sort of like the dial getting pulled to hundreds of channels and then thousands of channels and now millions of channels. And now it seems like everybody has a TV studio in their own home or in their office or both. So it certainly is a time of great transition. And so I'm going to ask you not only to tell us what live streaming is, but what it is not, because the temptation is to say, oh, we're all broadcasters, we're all live broadcasters. But I've heard you say very compellingly that live streaming is not live broadcasting. So could you tell us about those distinctions?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, live broadcasting to me is just live streaming sort of in a sort of a mass form with no real interaction between the creator and the viewer. And community-based live streaming is when there is a lot of interactivity between the creator and the viewer. So a live broadcast mentioned earlier, it's like Coachella. Coachella is a live broadcast and it's great. I watch it every year. I have a really good time. And every so often they'll throw, Twitter on there or some chat function, and that's even kind of fun too. But it's the expectation is that I'm basically watching a form of television. It very much feels like television. Community-based live streaming does not feel like television. It feels like going over to someone's basement and opening up some beers and hanging out and, watching them play music, watching them play a game, watching them draw, whatever they do. On YouNow, which is very teenager heavy, it's a lot of YouTube-like content. All the things you would see teenagers doing on YouTube, they kind of do that thing live, and they talk to people. And there's, even before COVID, people have this great need to communicate with other people and to find their tribe. And there's a lot of tribe finding going on in live streaming on the community side of it. And this is why we can have artists who you have never heard of, who you probably still haven't heard of, who can, make a living on Twitch doing nothing but streaming. You look at their socials and they don't have a lot of Instagram followers. They don't have very heavy YouTube traffic. They don't have a lot of Spotify spins. They have none of that. But they've got a couple hundred people watching them, 3-4 times a week. And that's a couple hundred people concurrently across 2 to 3 hours, which means it's 2,000 to 3,000 probably people watching them. And they are, subscribing to the channel, and they are buying virtual currency and donating, and they are donating off platform, all to sort of to contribute to what this creator is doing live. When they subscribe on Twitch, they get to use the emotes, which is the emoji that Twitch has. Each channel creator can make their own emotes. So when you subscribe, you use the emotes, and when you're using the emotes in the chat, you're contributing to the fun of that stream. You're contributing to, it's kind of like cheering. It's kind of like wooing, is clapping, it's dancing. It's all those things that you would do sort of in this digital form. And that's why you would want to subscribe, and that's why you want to support. And those, everybody can make their own. So they're really fun to use. When you give bits, a little animation appears on the screen. You're contributing to the fun, and the experience that everybody is having on that broadcast, so on that live stream. And when you contribute, there's a way you can actually contribute money offline through the services that generate the alerts and generate the chat bot messages and so forth. They can take donations as well. And you do a donation there, and it creates an alert on the screen, and you can put a donation down on a song request. So not only do I want to hear this song, I want to hear this song $10 worth. I want to hear this song, $5 worth. I know artists on Twitch who do probably 3 hours, a good 3 hours, probably 4 days a week. And I would say they're averaging $35 per song. And they're going through at least 30 songs. So they're clearing $1,000 in offsite donations alone.
So they get paid to play the music.
Yeah.
Wow.
They get played. Yeah. Yeah, because you can put a donation on a request. And I mean, they're extreme. Like this isn't typical by any stretch. They've been on for a long time. They are beloved. They do great covers. They do great originals. And when I say it's $35 average, that's more than one person donating. That's probably 5 or 6 people throwing in $5 or $10 a piece, for that. So it adds up. But this is no one you've heard of. This is no one that anybody had heard of before they started this, because they started in their living room. They weren't playing out. They didn't have any songs out. They just started performing on Twitch, and we're good, and they're good creators, and they're good stewards of their community. And they were able to create this fan community around them that would go advocate for them and bring in more fans. And then they grew and grew. And this is exactly, by the way, how every Twitch streamer you see who's big on Twitch grew. They started, from nothing. They built a fan one by one. Those fans went out and advocated for them. They networked with the other creators. They built themselves up to a certain point. And then, Twitch starts taking an interest at a certain point and puts you on the front page, and, can help you in the algorithm and so forth. So there's things that can be done, but that's how everyone's done it, And I mean, I dare you to find any of the first wave Twitch music streamers that you've ever heard of. But they're making a living.
When I came to LA in the early 90s, it seemed like the power of the press was reserved for those who owned one. So if you came to Hollywood, you were on the edge, and you were looking at the center and you were hoping someone at the center, you would gain their attention and they would put your record out or publish your article or give you a TV show, whatever. And that power that was at the center of the network had people at the edge wanting to be a part of it. But from what you're saying and what I'm seeing, it seems like the power has moved to the edge and that anyone at the edge can have a show when they want to have one.
I would argue that that's been going on for a long time. I mean, this is how Maker got huge. This is how full screen got huge. This is how Awesome is TV. I mean, YouTube was the first platform that really gave people their own show. Instagram was the next one where, mostly influencers, female influencers kind of had a platform to create things and to create audience from nothing. So, the idea of, the internet sort of leveling the playing field has been out for a long time. This is the first time I've seen it where you can monetize directly on the platform and without brands, because everything to this point has been, you monetize by getting a brand. They run advertising against it or you get a sponsor, but no one's actually going to pay you for your stupid YouTube video. That's been the thing. People are paying people for their stupid live streams. This is the massive difference. And the reason is because of this community. Because when you sit with someone for an hour, hour and a half, whatever it is on their stream, and they're looking at you and you feel like they're talking to you because they're looking right in the camera, and you post something to the chat and they respond to it, you feel like you're in the same room with them. And it just creates a completely different relationship to, this is one of the many pieces of content that I like and follow and share in my stream, and that's as far as I go with it, to this is somebody that's in my life who I hang out with, who I've made friends with their fans, who has responded when I've said something, who have played my requests, who I talk to offline on their Discord. Discord is a way for streamers to talk to people offline. It's basically a platform of message board servers. It's very popular with games. So we talk on Discord, and now I follow them on Instagram. Like, the following on Instagram and YouTube is kind of the last thing that people do when they become fans of live streamers, because you sort of have this deep relationship. You feel like you're really in their lives, and it's so satiating that you don't really feel like, now I have to go follow them on Instagram. Although you can grow your socials from that if you're very smart about it and make that compelling. You can even grow your email list, and you can sell merch. You can do all kinds of things. I'm just saying that the power sitting and having a conversation with someone is very, very different than reading their tweet and watching their video and posting a comment that they may or may not ever see or even respond to. And once you have that, you go from low engagement to high engagement. And if the platform is smart, they will have low monetization, low engagement tools, and high engagement, high monetization tools. Twitch has that, Mixer has that, Caffeine has that, TikTok has that, believe it or not. TikTok does not really promote their live stream so much, but they do have live streaming. I can't do it because I'm not a popular TikToker. I'm not sure what the qualifications are, but if you have an artist who is big on TikTok, stream there, because that is monetized.
So gamers started
great.
So gamers started this, right? I mean, they started the Twitch thing, and it was largely about watching gamers game. And so there's got to be some lessons we can learn from gamers before we kick them off their platform. So what can you tell us about that you've learned from gamers and how they've used things like Twitch and other things? What can we in the music business learn from this extremely lucrative, very popular, fast-growing medium of gaming?
Sure. So I think the one thing that platforms like Twitch have learned from the gaming industry is this concept of freemium. Get them in the door and then have things that they can spend their money on that make their experience better. Not that necessarily make the creator or the game publisher more rich, but that make their experience better. So I signed up for, Animal Crossing, and then I want the costume, or I want the hat, or I want the produce, or I want the, it's kind of like how Farmville got so big. Farmville was free to play on Facebook, but if I wanted to till my soil, I needed to find the fertilizer. And how do I get the fertilizer? Well, guess what? You know, it's this idea that you're not paying for the fertilizer. You're paying for fun. You're paying to have fun. So if you can have fun on the baseline level of free, and again, there are low engagement, low monetization ways of having fun, and you do those and that feels good, then you will naturally move yourself to the high engagement, high monetization ways to have fun. But it really all comes down to people are not going there to give artists money in the beginning. They are going there to have fun. They're going there, every purchase they make, even though it benefits the artist, is selfish for them. You know, I want to see my name up on the screen. I think you're great. Here's a couple 100 bits, but then I also want to get thanked for it. You know, I want to hear the song, but then, you know, I want to hear it so much that I'm going to give you this. It's a very kind of selfish, in a good way, you know, monetization. And you have to think about, what are some ways that it's going to be fun for the artist to spend money? I look at what Spotify's doing with the donation button, and I'm like, donate for what? Why? I already spend money on Spotify. Why am I going to actually start paying every artist individually now? Like, what's my motivation for doing that? I would rather buy a t-shirt and, you know, have the fun of wearing my favorite band's t-shirt than I would just giving them $10. Like, this can't be just charity. So I think it's important to understand the concept of freemium, and freemium starts with free, you know, ends with fun, you know, and the more fun you want to have, the more you end up spending. And it, you know, it starts becoming, I'm supporting this artist. I'm supporting them, you know, not only with my subscription, but by, you know, buying someone else who's new to the stream a subscription, because I want them to become a fan.
One of our chatters, Fiona Bloom, just brought up one of my favorite platforms, Road Nation. And I know you did some work recently with Road Nation. So
yeah.
Could you tell us how Road Nation and others are leading musicians into using this new medium to the benefit of their careers?
Yeah, Road Nation's an interesting case study because they're basically, you know, Kickstarters for tours. That's their gig. You know, it's here are the dates that I want, and put your money down on which dates you want me to do, and then here are some perks for those dates. It's Kickstarter for tours, and it's a great idea. And there are new tours now. So what do you do? So they're trying to find ways to bring these items that they have for sale, these sort of Kickstarter kind of like items, into live streaming. So what we're doing with them is they have this thing called the Roadless live stream series. It's on Twitch and YouTube and Facebook. We just did one yesterday. The first one was a week ago. The idea is to have them weekly and maybe even a couple times a week, and have artists that are Road Nation artists on there, run them kind of festival style, and then have their Road Nation items for sale promoted during this. And some of them have something to do with the stream, and some of them don't. Some of them are like, you know, handwritten lyrics or virtual meet and greet one-on-one, that sort of thing. And some of them are actually relevant to the stream. So they're still, you know, we're still kind of finding our way with how do we map this real world solution onto, you know, a digital a digital construct. But that's the idea behind it, that we should kind of showcase the artists who are on Road Nation, and we give them a way to make money with things that, you know, that they can't really sell naturally through the Twitch platform itself.
Now, one of my favorite people, Mark Cates, just showed up in the chat, and I love Cato. He manages MGMT. Not a band starting out at the beginning, but how would you advise Mark to think about live streaming as regards even a big band that's very popular like MGMT? He took them from small, and now they're a big act. Is there a place
so there's been a handful of major artists on Twitch for a while. And it's a little tricky what they can do because they're in recording contracts. So it's not like, you know, my artist, Megan Lenny, is who I manage. She's not signed anywhere. She can do whatever she wants anytime. And she doesn't have to answer back to her publisher or her record label. Major artists have to answer back to a publisher or a record label. So that's the first thing. You should have a conversation with them about, you know, what everyone's comfortable with the artist doing. There is an artist named Matt Heafy, who is the lead singer and guitarist of a band called Trivium. They're on Roadrunner. He's been on for a couple of years now, at least. And what he does is he goes on and brings his guitar out, sits in his home studio and shreds. And he talks to his fans, and then he shreds and he talks to his fans, and it's a lot of fun. I watched him one time recording vocals. They were recording a record and he was doing some vocal takes, and you saw him doing a vocal take and then kind of talking about a little bit and doing another one. And you kind of see the process. When he goes on tour, he'll put his phone side stage and live stream the show. So, I mean, there's no expectation that we're going to talk to him during this time, but, you know, we have talked to him many times during his streams. So it's kind of fun to see him go be a rock star, you know, and see it from side stage and have that conversation amongst the fans. So that's what a signed artist is doing. There's Brendan Urie from Panic, and he's been just kind of hanging out and talking to people for a long time. He remixed one of his songs live. It's been like 6 hours or something, which I wouldn't recommend a lot of people do because it can be really boring to watch somebody like work Pro Tools for 6 hours in a row. But if you're a big fan and he's making this cool remix, you know, and he's willing to talk to people during that actually worked for him. And the way he works the money is he just puts everything through his charity. So he definitely monetizes on his channel, but then it all goes to a charity of his choice. So there is some trickiness, you know, worked out with major bands.
Inevitably, these topics bring to mind issues of rights. And you mentioned that early. You said, for example, that some artists have an advantage because they own all their rights. And so, of course, they can make the decision as to what to do with them, whereas other artists maybe are handicapped by the idea that they have to convince someone to allow them to do this and what they could do with it. I'll observe that when I watch Twitch or TikTok or others, there's two different ways music arises. Sometimes it's the point, meaning that the musician is playing ostensibly live. I say ostensibly live, Karen, because I think you're the one who told me, almost burst the bubble to say that it's never live. I mean, is that right? It's never live?
I will tell you, when the artists are remote and it looks good, there's a really good chance it's recorded.
So they've already prepared this. No shame in that.
Yeah, the Lady Gaga thing, I would say 90% of that was pre-recorded. I'd be surprised if any of that was live.
Michelle Chalked, who is an artist I really like. I mean, I listened to her music for so much of my music career. It's wonderful stuff. And she, I think, correctly observes that these are synchronization rights that are involved when the music is the point. Now, obviously, when someone is just playing the music with their stream, which is not focused on the music, perhaps it is a performance like radio. I don't know. And that begins to remind me of the early days of webcasting when anybody could have a radio station, and they still can because of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act gave them that right, and Sound Exchange arose to monetize that. We'll set that aside as being different. But where it's a synchronization right, that may be a very thorny can of rights to pull out. What do you think of that? Are they conscious of this at Twitch? Are people trying to work out some kind of rights arrangement?
Yeah, I mean, look, Cindy Charles has been there for at least a couple of years now, working on this. She was, you know, freelance licensing expert with Amazon for a long time. She got pulled into the Twitch project, and, you know, she's doing great work over there. Twitch in the last year has really beefed up their music department in general from a growth standpoint, from a licensing standpoint, from a trying to get you know, more artists performing, and also how do we help the people who are already there. And they're trying, I give them a lot of credit in this, because it would be really easy for Amazon to just swoop in. Amazon owns Twitch, for Amazon to just swoop in and, you know, dump their content distribution strategy on Twitch and kind of mess it up. And Twitch has done a really good job at pushing back with Amazon and saying, no, this is what makes us popular. This is what makes people want to come back. This is, you know, sort of the fabric of what we do and how it operates. We have to stay true to that. And the music department is doing the same thing. When they think about growth, they think about organic growth. They think about, when we bring a major artist onto the platform to do something with us, then how does that help the rest of the people who have been here for the past 6 years? You know, what is, you know, how do we get them, once their stream is over, how do we get them to then, the audience to disperse amongst the other, 300 to 500 people who are doing great work on there, and which ones do we point to? So I give them a lot of credit in trying to be very thoughtful and respectful of the community that exists and the community that, frankly, the musicians and the fans have built. Twitch didn't say, hey, let's do music. They didn't do that. People started streaming music, and they ended up making it a category, and it got bigger. Every milestone that Twitch has hit with music has come from the community directly. It's come from them asking for it. It's come from Twitch listening to them. So I give them a lot of credit in how they're growing it. Twitch wasn't set up to be a music service, and I think they're going to have some growing pains in what that looks like. And yeah, these are all conversations that it's definitely time to have.
So Twitch is the brightest light. We need to discuss the shadows to some degree. Who's coming up? Who is it that is rising to compete with Twitch? And I've noted that lately there's a lot of news about that, but surely there is TikTok and others. Before we finish this, because we are nearing the end, always good to leave them wanting more. Let's talk about the lineup of other services that will be worth discussing in the future.
So this is a really interesting question, because I can name 3 or 4 dedicated music live streaming communities that have gone under in the last year alone. Basically, a Twitch for music. Hey, this is a great idea. We should do all this with music. And one of them was built by Line, which is a massive company with massive resources, and they put really good people behind this, and it failed. They gave it a good couple of years, and they had a bunch of people in there streaming, and they could never get it off the ground. So when you think of the competitors and who else is out there, like with COVID, I mean, maybe some of those companies could have had a bounce back the way that StageIt has. But the question is there space for this long term? And I would argue that music is not a big enough category on its own to sustain its own live stream platform, because I've seen 4 fail in the last year in a controlled environment. We are not in a controlled environment right now. We are in absolute chaos. But in a controlled environment, they failed. So I think when you're looking at where to put an artist, the thing I always say is, do you want to be a streamer? Do you want to have an ongoing stream? Or do you just want to do some streams? If you want to do some streams, do it where you already have audience. Help yourself out. If you're big on YouTube, do it on YouTube. If you're big on Facebook, do it there. You're big on Instagram, do it there. You're big on TikTok, do it there. Just make it easy on yourself. But if you really want to grow and you think this is something you want to add to your portfolio permanently, Twitch music, I think, is hands down still the best option. I thought that a year ago, and I read the book, and I think it now. Mixer and Caffeine are also gamer-based community live stream services that are making room for music, and have since the outstart. Caffeine has Offset does a show there on a regular basis. It's been a lot of rap so far, but there's definitely room to grow within there. If your fan base is teenagers, you should be looking at you now. It's a lot of teenagers. Twitch is 80% male and over 55% 18 to 35. Although I will say, anecdotally, the creator side in the music category is pretty 50-50 male to female, and the females don't really get harassed in there. So it's very female friendly, although the audience tends to be mostly male. But those are the big ones, and you have to really think about the monetization is the next thing. With Facebook, you're mostly monetizing off Facebook. They're gonna let you start charging for streams, but I don't know that a paywall is really the answer. Again, I think freemium is the answer. Get them in, let them have fun, charge them to have more fun. That's the model that actually works. My cat.
Yeah, and I'll note, I think the model that ultimately will work for musicians is the pool of money with a fair split. I mean, there's a lot of this that's like Sound Exchange, except with the video.
Yeah.
And I mention that because it's pure push. You don't basically click a button like a jukebox in order to hear something, which is very high value use that gets you into Spotify territory. But this is more like everybody having their own MTV station in some way. So
Sure.
it does seem to me to be ripe for collective monetization. But, I promised we would not go past 2:45 except for questions. And I want to give you a few minutes to tell people how to find you, because there's no doubt in my mind.
Sorry, my cat's going bonkers here.
I loved hearing the cat, by the way. We heard the meows, and that is one of the beautiful things about everybody having their own broadcast studio.
Gosh, he really wants to leave my office, and I didn't want to leave the conversation to do that. And my
Yeah, no, it's fantastic.
otherwise occupied. So
don't feel bad at all. It's
sweetheart.
really wonderful. But so I want to ask you, where do people find you? Where do they find your book about Twitch? How do they engage you as a consultant in this area? Because no doubt there are many who realize they need your expertise. How do they find you? And how do they find the resources that you have left out there for us? And tell us about your own Twitch channel if you have one.
Yeah. So for me, twitchformusicians.com. Twitchformusicians.com is pretty basic. You can find everything, all my socials and so forth there. The book is, the ebook is only $15 on my site. It's a lot more on the retailers. It's in every retailer. I self-published. Publishing is a lot like releasing music now. You pay your money and you're everywhere. It's pretty crazy. So it's print on demand through Amazon and Barnes & Noble and everything. So if you want to actually read the book, and I recommend you do. I recommend, even if you're not going to stream, if you're interested in how all this works, my book is 80% a walkthrough of which services you're going to use and how you're going to use them and how you're going to program them. And it's a long book, but it's over half pictures. So don't let the length throw you off. But it's really important to understand how each of these components work together. When I stream on YouNow, I would click go live on YouNow, and I was live, and that was pretty much the beginning and end of it. And all the monetization happened on the platform, and it was really, really easy. Twitch is not like that. Streaming on Twitch, you're going to use 3 different platforms and 2 different monetization systems. And you're kind of banging your head against the wall trying to figure out how to put a good channel together. And there's a lot of information, and it's a really stiff learning curve. And again, even if you're not going to produce a channel, it's going to be really helpful for you to know how all these components work together, because it's going to be how you execute a promotion on there. You have to understand that a lot of what I'm doing with Road Nation right now is explaining to them what they can and can't do, how they can do what they want, within the tools that are available. I mean, as advanced as live streaming is, it's not so advanced that everything works amazingly. It's a lot of, this plugin for that, and that service for that, and this goes over here, but there's a lot to it. So if you really want to understand it, just buy and read the book. It's the best way to go. My Twitter is @TwitchForMusic. I talk a lot about what's happening with Twitch and what's happening with the general live streaming industry. So that's a really good resource. If you want to see streams that I produce, Marina V Music, I'll put it in the thing, twitch.tv/Marina V Music is the one that I produce 3 times a week. She's incredible. She has like 11 self-released records and a really dedicated fan base, and she's perfect for this. And it's sort of a textbook way for how to produce a channel for developing artists. And then the artist that I manage on there is Megan Linnaeus. And if you want to see how a completely self-made artist on Twitch is doing it, go watch Megan. She's fantastic. So those are the different ways to do that.
Aaron,
I'll put my email in here too.
Yes, please, your email address for old folks like me, who can
Look, I'm available for strategy consulting, biz dev consulting, live stream production. I have an hourly rate if you just want to talk for an hour and get some direction on what to do. I have an hourly rate for that. If you want to bring me in for a project, we can discuss project rates. Like I'm available to help people.
Well, you're terrific, and I just don't think there's anyone better on this topic, and I like engaging with the best. People can find me at griffin@onehouse.com, but I'm pretty easy to find on the net. We've hit 2:45 square on the nose, and I think we'll maybe even take some questions if we've got the time. Tom Truitt, what do you know about that? You're looking there like Bobby Axelrod from Billions, which of course is coming back on this weekend, thank goodness. That Homeland end was really something. And so now we've got to move over to Billions. before the stuff from the edge of the network, like Twitch, wipes television out completely.
We do have a number of questions, and most of them have to do with the copyright and the publishing related issues around Twitch and musicians performing music, maybe their own originals as well as covers. Karen, can you go into that for a moment, please?
About what they should be doing? Which one?
How can they not violate copyright is the gist of a lot of the questions.
Oh, well, generally, if you're performing, you're pretty okay, at least on Twitch. Definitely Facebook and YouTube as well. They've kind of all worked that out with the PROs. So if you're performing a cover, you're fine. You're not going to get pulled down. It's when you start playing sound recordings that it gets tricky. So DJs will get pulled down immediately on Facebook and on YouTube. On Twitch, they're not going that far with it yet. I imagine they will at some point conform to what Facebook and YouTube is doing, but they're not doing that yet. If you're live and you're DJing, you're fine. But if you archive your DJ show, they will mute out all those sound recordings, and they'll mute out everything, all the sound during that sound recording. So that's kind of how they're handling it right now.
I just wanted to add that they do have ASCAP. They do pay ASCAP and BMI and CSAC, is my understanding.
Yeah, for sure. They pay
that's
PROs.
why you said that as long as they're performing, they're covered, because there is a performance license that's been cut for them. Yes. I agree with Michelle Schacht and others who assert that this is inherently sync licensing because there's images and things moving, but I urge licensing upon the music community. We went 15 years and we still don't have podcast licensing. This is not something to dawdle over. This is something where you license and you come back a year later and you fix that license if there's something wrong with it. But it is a mistake to just leave this uncovered.
Yeah, I mean, Abby makes a good point. She's like, how is that data being delivered by Twitch to the PROs? It's not. There's no attribution.
Should be.
That, when Marina plays, a cover of Imagine like she did last night, there's no way for her to tell Twitch she just played Imagine. So there's a lot of work to be done. Twitch does have their own game called Twitch Sings. That's a karaoke game. And all of that, obviously they can do attribution because they have data on what songs got played. They don't have a way to pick out data on what songs are being played on just the general creator sites. So that's an area that needs to be worked on.
And of course, Amazon owns Twitch. They've got deep pockets. They've got reasons to work with the music community.
Well, look, I mean, personally, I have told them this. Personally, I think that it's not that hard to do attribution because almost every artist that is playing songs has a song queue. There is another, because nothing all happens on Twitch, there is another company, basically developers that were on Twitch that made their own thing. But there's a system for requesting songs and for those songs to go into a queue. And then for the artist to check that box saying, I played that song, to get it off the queue, or to delete it saying, I didn't play that song. That the data is there. And, we've had these conversations a long time ago. I don't work for them. I don't know, what's going on, but it's not so impossible to get that. Like, it's really hard on a YouTube channel because we're relying on someone submitting their data saying I did these cover songs, or putting the metadata incorrectly. Because people are requesting songs, because there is a song queue that, that the artist then looks at and reorders and checks off and so forth. The data exists. Many, many, many instances in these live streams. It's a matter of taking advantage of what's already there.
Look, I'm with you, and I think somebody will write a script that catches this stuff and makes a playlist potentially, so that if I sing out very ineptly in my own voice about the memories I have of East Texas and its holly green rolling hills, that Michelle gets paid for it. Yeah. That's got to come about. Tom, more questions.
Another question is, what's with the quality of the streaming platform? I'm sorry, not the live streaming platforms for musicians. We're seeing so many artists sitting in their bedroom performing with what appears to be either crappy technology or crappy sound equipment or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Karen, can you comment on that, please?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. When we're talking about a live stream that the artist is producing themselves, they are in front of their own phone, they are using their own live stream production software, whatever, they have a lot more control over it than I do as a remote producer. So with Road Nation, I produce the show from my computer on my OBS, which is what I use to produce the live stream. But, the artists are all over the country. So I have to basically video conference them in. And I'm really reliant upon video conference software. And I'm also reliant on how good is their camera, how good are their microphones? Do they have a mixing board? Does that mixing board have a USB audio interface that they can plug into their computer so their computer can read that signal? And even given that, the video conferencing service has a lot of automatic noise compression, gating, a lot of things that they do that will still screw with the sound. So if you want really good remote sound, it gets insanely technical. The artist has to have their own OBS and basically be sending their OBS feed into you, which is going to be a delay. And they have to learn how to use OBS, which is no small feat. And if they're using a Mac, good luck, because there is Mac for OBS for Mac, but you have to use a lot of extra plugins to make that work. And if you want to use your Logic, that's one more. It's like, I just want everyone to understand, this is not easy. And this is why I say, when you see a live stream and it looks good, I guarantee you these artists sent in a recording and they made a video and they posted the video, especially if no one's interacting with the audience, reading a comment, answering a comment. I guarantee you it's recorded. Because it just looks way too good. But the things that an artist could have to help them, a really good webcam. They're hard to find now because they're sold out. Not surprisingly, they're sold out. You can usually buy the webcam I'm using right now is an HD. I got it for $75. This camera right now is $250 because of demand.
Try to buy green fabric these days.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the background, and you can kind of like the C922 Logitech has a green screen feature. So just the same way that Zoom does, kind of. You can play with things. But a good camera, if you don't have a webcam, you can actually turn your phone camera into a webcam. If you have a DSLR, you can turn your DSLR into webcam. And then for audio, a really good microphone is the way to go. Most artists have a decent microphone. Try not to use the one on your phone. Try not to use the one on your computer. If you can, like I have a Sennheiser with a USB interface right here, and that's what I'm using for this. I could definitely play and sing into this if I were so inclined. But if you can route everything through a mixing board and put that mixing board into an USB audio interface, so it all goes into your computer, then your computer can read that signal and you can identify that. That's how Marina does it, and she sounds amazing.
Look, truckers do it. This is the amazing thing, is that there are truckers on the highways who are actually live streaming from the cab of their semi-trailer or a semi-truck. And so you can get it done.
Now, that's long tail content if there ever was, Jim.
Yeah, I mean, Shure makes this really cute little microphone that has a lightning adapter, and you just stick it onto your iPad or your iPhone, and it's a really good room microphone. So if you can do that and use your phone's camera, if you have a really good iPhone, for example, then I mean that'll get you through. There's a device called the iRig that is a little lipstick looking kind of hardware device where you plug in your amp or your mic or whatever, and then that sort of diverts itself into your computer. So there are solutions out there, but people are kind of limited to what they have. It's not like live streaming equipment is abundant right now, and it's not like anybody can really go to Best Buy or wherever. We're sort of limited to what Amazon can deliver to us. So, just be a little patient with how things, look and sound. Everyone's really limited to the tools they have in front of them. And the streamers, the pro streamers on Twitch have been doing this for a long time and have had a long time to dial in their systems. And that's why they sound so good. And they all talk to each other and trade tips and tricks too. So back to the community. They all help each other.
Clear. They're making some money, aren't they? I mean, some of the Twitch streamers are pulling down 6 figures a year or more.
Very few are making that much, but definitely, yeah, for sure. Most streamers who are making a living doing this, by my guess, and this is totally my guess, they're probably between 30 and 60 grand a year. That's my guess. And it's not consistent. Like you could have a really good subscription month and a really bad subscription month. And there's definitely waves of traffic on Twitch. There's months where it's really popular. And then, January is kind of a dead month. There's just sort of these waves. And it's really hard to stream consistently. It seems like it takes no effort. You guys, it's exhausting. It really is tiring. Even if you're only on for, 2 or 3 hours, that's a long time to be on, to be performing, to be talking to people, to enter to the chat and to take requests and to do all these things. Like it really does take a lot out of you. Like Marina is tired and hungry when she is, when she is done, and there's definitely burnout. There's definitely Twitch streamers who just take a few months off because they're just like, ugh, you just feel like you hit a wall. So I don't want to oversell this as show up and it's going to be, amazing and the world's going to open for you. It's a lot of work. It's building yourself on an entirely new platform, and it's doing it consistently, and it's time consuming. The thing I will say is the ROI on that, insane. I mean, the ROI in terms of building your fan base, getting your fans into super fans, turning that into actual dollars, hour for hour, the hours you put into live streaming and the ROI you're going to get on that is like 10, 20 fold versus the hours you're putting in on Instagram and Facebook.
And critically, the rating system is perfect. You know how many people are listening at any given time. The numbers are in front of you and the audience. Unlike radio, where you have no idea how many people are tuned in.
For sure.
You simply do not know.
And I'm not saying give up your Instagram or your Facebook. Certainly do not. I'm just saying that if you're gonna switch gears at this point and refocus efforts, give live streaming a shot. And give it a good 3 to 4 months before you make any big decisions about how it's doing for you, because it does take time. It's a show up platform. You have to show up over and over again. People have to show up over and over again. I mean, Marina's been up for a year, and we had 2 big raids this week, which is massive. It's like, where are these coming from? We get some raids. We don't get a lot. Raids is when someone finishes their stream and then dumps all of their current viewers into your stream. It's a lovely thing to do. It's like, here's my audience. I'm out. Bye. So, I mean, she started off with 15 viewers last night, and then within 10 minutes, she had 130. And then it went down to like 90 and held at 90 for a good hour and a half. And by the end of it, she was down to 65. So she held people. That's the thing. And when you start networking with other artists, on whatever platform you want to use, do it with artists for whom you share audience, not who is exactly like you, but with whom you think you would share audience. So when their audience raids you, they stay and they follow. She got so many follows last night. She even got a donation from someone we've never heard of. Like, these things happen.
And let's be clear, some streamers, and they're not household names in any other way, are drawing crowds consistently between 6,000 and 15,000 people at a time, like Kit Boga or Amaranth or others.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not seeing musicians do that. I'm only seeing established musicians bring in those kinds of people.
That's my point. These are not household names, but they are nonetheless. They build core audiences that show up daily for hours between 6,000 and 15,000 people.
The gamers, yes. The gamers and the general streamers, yes. The musicians.
General streamers, even if they're not gaming.
Yeah. The musicians before COVID, a pro streamer would bring in 200 to 400 concurrents pretty steadily every show. Now all those who had 200 to 400, they're riding closer to 500 to 600 right now. Whereas one even pretty close to 1,000. And again, this is just the indie artists, what I call the first wave of Twitch music streamers. This is no one you've ever heard of. They've built this from scratch themselves, their audience on Twitch. But that's, a 200 to 300 concurrents over a few hours, 3 to 4 days a week. And they can sustain themselves doing that. Now, these are solo artists. These are not bands, and they generally don't live in New York or Los Angeles. So, temper your expectations. But, if there are bands on here who do really well, and for them, this is how they pay for their video. This is how they pay for their photo shoot. This is how they get their songs recorded. This is how they, they do all these things you want to do. So At the very worst, it's a nice side hustle. And at the very best, it's a living for a lot of people.
Well, we've hit the magic hour.
Yes, and I
So
want to.
I think it's time.
It is, and I want to say thank you to Jim and for Karen for.
I had a great time. Thank you for having me. You did an amazing job, Tom. And I think people will look back at this in an important moment in bringing people together in the music community. Bravo.
Well, thank you for all your efforts and contributions. Folks, I invite you to follow up with Karen and please purchase her book. She's got a lot more to share with you, a lot of wisdom.
She is the queen.
Yeah.
Guys, I've been streaming since 2016. I was on
TwitchForMusicians.com, am I right?
TwitchForMusicians.com. Yeah, I was at Medium in 2016 talking about this. I was at South by in 2016 talking to a room full of people about the power of live streaming. I feel like everyone's finally wanted to play in my sandbox, and I couldn't be happier.
We're here.
Circumstances are not so great, but hey, let's have fun.
What a sandbox it is, and it's even got its own resident kitty.
It does, yeah.
That was wonderful. Thanks to the cat. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. And we will do this again, folks. Stay tuned and thank you for your time. Be kind to one another and stay safe and healthy.
That will do. Be well. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.